And I'm testing another microphone, and it also works. Wonderful. Great. So I think we have a nice and cozy group, so we don't need to kind of do it too formally. So my name is Ingvild Solvang. I'm with the Global Green Growth Institute, and I'm Director of Climate Action and Inclusive Development. And to my right, I have our colleague.
Hello, everybody. My name is Holger Treidel. I'm working with GIZ, German International Corporation, and I'm heading the section Climate Change and Climate Policy. Very happy to co-moderate this session together with Ingvild, with you.
So that is our names on the screen. So this is a GGGI GIZ co-hosted event, and we have 3 facilitators. Do you want to?
Hi, everyone. I'm Naranda Maurice George, and I'm a climate change specialist with the Adaptation Fund.
Hello, everyone. I'm Namrata, policy lead for Global Resilience Partnership.
Hi, colleagues. I'm Nicolas Zambrano. I am Adaptation Finance Officer at GTGI.
Hi, my name is Angelica Ong. I'm a pro-nuclear activist, and I'm here to learn about how these negotiations, etc., take place.
Hello everyone, my name is Jean Bosco. I'm a young negotiator who follows adaptation. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jesse Sevchik with Elanco Animal Health. We make medicine for animals looking to learn more.
Katie Cook, also with Elanco Animal Health, and same, looking to learn more from you guys. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liliana Elizondo. I'm from the Climate Finance Group for Latin America and the Caribbean.
Hello, I'm Hamdia. I'm from Malaysia. I'm joining our delegation for the loss and damages, adaptation and mitigation. So I want to learn what is going on.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Saudier from the Chamber of Agriculture in Mauritius, small island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and we're really keen on learning how to work all things for our small island. Thank you. I'll give you back the mic.
Hold on to it, because I think we should just distribute the microphones. So yeah, no, thanks a lot for that. So we are here to discuss, let us go back to the first slide, so get the title right. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Just to kind of set a bit of a frame before we get into a discussion on kind of defining new structures for adaptation and resilience finance. And I think the starting point for the conversation is this acknowledgement that things are not quite working. Finance is not flowing. People say there is money somewhere, but where and how is it flowing? So that's the starting point. Should I just give a little bit of a start from my side, and I'll hand it to you in a minute? I mean, numbers of conversations. I mean, we've had probably dozens of these conversations just this week, you know, about how finance is not working. And we've had a number of, a series of events leading up to, let's say, this moment, including a very interesting session that we had at the Resilience Hub, GGI had at the Resilience Hub with the Adaptation Fund, and we had GCF there, we had FCDO, we had a number of really good speakers identifying what are the challenges in adaptation. And you know, the conundrum that we are in, depending on who you speak to, the challenges are different. Can we get your name? We have done the round of introductions, so it would be nice to know just to...
I'm sorry to be late.
No worries.
I'm Eva Rettelinova from the African Climate Foundation, and I lead our work on adaptation and resilience investment platforms, so very interested in this topic.
Yeah, we are just starting. We just had a round of introductions, so...
I thought I snuck in without anyone noticing. Koketso Morakile, I'm from Absa Bank Limited, a commercial investment bank based in South Africa, but with a Pan-Africa presence, and I'm in sustainable finance.
Fantastic. I think that expanded the range of stakeholders we have in the room as well, so that's excellent. And the different types of stakeholders will probably see the challenge of finance flows from national adaptation plans to implementation to be different. So private banks will say that it's too risky to invest in adaptation. Investors will say that the adaptation plans, so if we talk about the effectiveness of those plans to mobilize finance, the adaptation plans are not understanding or are not defining ways to underwrite the climate risks. International finance institutions are saying, yeah, sure, we have the money, but your projects are not very well designed, and there is no standardization around the criteria for use of data and what data is being used. Governments are looking for policy, and policy that can help them leverage adaptation products such as insurance and others. Climate funds are not sure that their own readiness processes are actually making countries ready to actually access the funds, right? So there are all kinds of challenges in this process, and we have been reflecting on this fact that there is also this dilemma between the need for adaptation to be locally led, but then the global structure for finance is essentially global, and you have a local situation which is dire and the risks are urgent and immediate, and then you have those big funds and many funds and maybe too many funds in the ecosystem that are slow-moving, bureaucratic. There is no standardization of what type of data and how much data would be required between the different climate funds, and also not a very good kind of standardized definition of what a good adaptation project what that actually looks like. So we also did a review of the NAPs, so in DGI in partnership with many, including also GIZ, and others, did a review of quality of NAPs across a number of kind of areas where we think kind of quality would come from a number of areas. And not surprisingly, we found that in terms of quality, the finance link of the NAP seems to be the weakest, defined by how many NAPs have included the cost of inaction. Only 6% of the NAPs that we reviewed, and we reviewed some 30 that had been submitted to UNFCCC at the time, only 6% actually looked at the cost of inaction. 60% of the NAP detailed the total cost of adaptation actions, and 30% of NAPs discussed the potential innovative financing mechanisms as a way to finance the NAP. So we found huge areas of improvement in this area for NAPs themselves. So let me leave it at that from my side, and then the aim now, I'll hand it to GIZ in a minute, to Holger, to talk a little bit from GIZ perspective what the issues are, before we would like to actually get you involved in workshopping what could be the solutions. So Holger.
Thanks a lot, and thanks Ingvild for framing, I think, the subject very nicely. Pleasure to see that the room is filling up. I think we won't be able to make that round of introduction again and again when more people are coming in. I would like to provide a few examples about the work that GIZ is doing on adaptation, on finance specifically. Could you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. Well, GIZ, actually what we as GIZ do is supporting the German government and other commissioning ministries and parties in implementing development policies. And capacity development truly is at the heart of what we do. That's since the beginning, we believe that the creation of human capacities is a key to change things and to move towards a sustainable future. We work, and I will cut this very short here, in 120 countries globally. So we do have really the feet on the ground, working closely with the partner governments, of course, but also with other actors from civil society, from the private sector, a lot. And you need all those actors if you want to move ahead on adaptation, as you all know very well. Zooming in a little bit more on the work we do on adaptation, and then afterwards I will even more zoom in into financing adaptation, is creation of capacities, but in all different aspects related to adaptation. So starting from the climate risk analyses, through insurance issues, nature-based solutions, sustainable agriculture, all those elements do have a strong finance component. We are working in many countries with the governments to establish the NAPs, and crucially, not only to have the NAP as a document, a nice document that stands on a shelf, but to consider the financing component with this. That's a challenge, and we all know that there are, until now, few good examples of really successful financing implementation of NAPs. But there is already, I think, a rich source of experiences that we can draw upon. And we are, of course, not doing that alone, but together with several partners, UNFCCC, of course, with the NAP Global Network, and very happy also with GI to be partnering on this. Now, I would like to point out from the experience of implementing so many projects in all those countries, what in our opinion is key and what is still missing in terms of capacities. One, access to international climate funds. That's not a secret. I think you all know that the international climate finance architecture is complex, and in many countries, the structures and the capacities to access those funds are not yet sufficient. It's the whole readiness debates that you're all aware of. I think those are missed opportunities. So we need to work much more in making countries ready to be able to access those funds, also for adaptation. Because even if you look at the GCF, they are looking for good adaptation projects. The second thing is mobilize also domestic public funding, which is key. It cannot be all done from the international community, but it has to be part of the national budget as well, at least the core and base funding. And also for that, more capacity is needed to provide that base funding for the implementation of NAPs. And the third, and I think very important part, is the mobilization of private funding. And in adaptation, that is still a lot of work to do. I believe that there's great opportunities, even though it may be not so visible as it is in mitigation in some places, but there are a lot of opportunities that we need to, I think, use much more. Now I would like to, if I have 3 more minutes, to give you 3 brief examples of types of projects that are being implemented. One, specifically, what I just mentioned, private adaptation finance. To look at companies that do have business models on adaptation, but are not yet ready to access funding and to grow and to scale up their businesses. This project is focusing on small and medium enterprises, not the big players, and really building the capacities within the companies to structure, to prepare their funding documents, but also to look at investors and make matchmaking, because there are investors there, impact investors and others who are interested also to invest in adaptation. And with a strong focus on female entrepreneurs. The second example, and I'll be very short here, is at a different scale. It's the C40 Cities Finance Facility. Cities, produce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. They are very prone to the impacts of climate change and need adaptation and infrastructure. So here, there's this facility that is working to provide also the preparation of funding documents to access investments. I'll cut it short here because we want some time for discussion afterwards. And the last example is one from a country selected here, Pakistan, one of the countries where we are working with the government to establish a NAP, which is financed, and putting particularly on that finance component a lot of emphasis. I won't go much more into details here, just for the sake of time, but wanted to give like 3 examples at different scales of the work that we are doing as GIZ, as a food for thought, and looking forward to enter the discussions right now. Back to you, Ingvild.
So, and we've had some newcomers in the room. Actually, now we have a quite big group. So just to kind of recap, challenges of the finance flows from national adaptation plans to the projects and to the locally led initiatives out there, right? That's what we are here to discuss. The idea is that we engage everyone in the discussion. So we have a couple of options of how we do that. What we had thought is actually to break into groups to engage you as actively as we possibly can. So if there is appetite to do that, what we had considered was whether or not to do it by type of stakeholders and do a little bit of a SWOT analysis of from the perspective of different types of stakeholders, what are the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats in that flow of finance from the NAP to initiatives. Let's maybe try that. I see people are sort of struggling. It's late afternoon, not looking at anyone in particular, but I saw some yawns. I feel the yawn. It's getting late in the afternoon, so I think maybe to be more energized, let's break out. Yeah, and more interactive. Yeah, let's do that. And now, I don't know if we can, from ministry and public agencies, I know that there is certainly one from Malaysia here, but I don't know how many others do we have. That's what I thought. Oh yeah, look, we have two. So we have, and from private sector, yeah, you see we have a number there, and we have, do we have community level? Yeah, that's, I think we have a one-person group from that, yeah. Yeah. And data specific, anybody feel that they don't really belong anywhere? Oh, there we go. Yeah. So what do we propose? Do we want to just mix it up?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, I think so. Into roughly, should we do 3 groups? And do you estimate how many we are and how many per group? We say 6, 7 per group. Yeah. And one there, one there, one there. And then, yeah, so basically before that is the classic facilitator mistake of asking people to move before we have done the instructions. But basically then to look at the strengths of the group. I think because we are mixing stakeholders, the strength of supporting NAP finance and the weaknesses in capacity. Let's put this up here, and then let's put it up here, and let's see how it works in each group, and the facilitator can help to set the parameter for the discussion in each group. Yeah? And there is flip chart, and there are some markers around, and we'll move the flip charts to the groups.
Maybe quickly on the time before we start. We thought that we could give up to like 30 minutes to work in the working groups on the 2 main questions that will be explained to you now by your facilitators. And then like 10 minutes to 5, come back to plenary to report quickly from the groups back to the plenary. Thanks.
Okay. So let's just turn to face each other a little bit and maybe just pass the microphone around the room.
I think so,
yeah.
Do we want to come together here or you
yeah,
want
we
to stay
can.
in the groups?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe...
Or we can also walk around.
Yeah.
So come to see. Yeah? So we would like to come back to the plenary to hear a little bit about the results from each group. We can do things. Either you stay where you are and we just have the microphone going from one group to another, or you come and join us here at this group and we can stand up and move a little bit and listen to the key messages that came out of the discussions from this first group. So as you like. To whom may I pass the microphone? You haven't decided yet? But you're the one?
I think I'll give a bit of context first. So I'm not actually technically any of the stakeholders. I'm a student right now, but I was taking part in I was observing the negotiation rooms on national adaptation plans, and I was feeling a bit lost, so I thought I'd come over here and hear about it on the ground. Also never done SWOT analysis before, so I'll get into it. What I heard was the opportunities and threats were the external perspectives, which would be more feasible to share to the room. So there were lots of different countries represented here. So there was Malaysia, the US. I'm thinking on the spot here. You can contribute more if you want. The first one was for opportunities, promoting communication and awareness raising from the ground, a communities-based approach, and also addressing attitudes and behaviors and incorporating sustainability in these approaches. And there was also a discussion about the question of what development actually means, and kind of, yeah, so transformation comes across the board and across stakeholders. And also the top one was, yeah, okay. And yeah, so the other point was mitigating co-benefits of adaptation action, and also private-public partnerships for resilient infrastructure, and then finally forging partnerships for innovation technology to attract private sector and basically creating engagement to attract the private sector. Yeah. Key messages. Yeah, so key threats, there were four of them. So one was trying to implement a one-size-fits-all approach. The next one was adaptation, which is currently branded as not bankable. The next one was the absence of creative thinking on the ground across the sectors and areas that are currently deemed not attractive to the private sector, as I said, and right now not waiting on the perfect solution. I think that was everything.
Yes, thanks a lot. Amazing what is possible in half an hour. Please, go ahead. Table number 2.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon once again. Our group came up with, I'll be very selective to take maximum 1 or 2 points from each. To start off with the strength, we agreed that the government, not just capacity, but good governance is critical when it comes to the NAP implementation, development, finance, and implementation. That means starting from political commitment, whole of government, whole of society approach, the capacity, and then so we cited governance as a key strength needed to develop, implement, and finance the NAPs. In terms of weakness, we also, contrary to that, we cited weak governance or inefficiency in the governance system is also limits the finance of the NAP, especially when the finances are needed to provide both vertical and horizontal. Then the long process, the complexity, the inadequacy, the limited flexibility of the existing climate funds, especially when we consider funds that are coming from the existing climate financing windows, such as GEF, GCF, and Adaptation Fund, they are not actually flexible. They are not fit for purpose. For example, my country, we forecast El Nino coming in. The project we designed today will come in 3-4 years' time, and the situation will change. We may be dealing with drought rather than floods. Finally, and we also cited absorption capacity that goes back to the governance capacities in general. So if the absorption capacity in every program implemented in the NAP or wider climate actions, then that kills the appetite to provide more financing. On the opportunities we cited, we identified the existence of vibrant private sectors, especially in the East African community where we have vibrant private sector that already provides social services such as water, energy, etc. And we can tap in to provide additional financing, co-financing, and scaling up of these programs. Finally, on this, there's opportunity to, we found, for example, in my country, when we developed the NAP, if I present it today to investors, they cannot see where to invest. It's commitments and targets, a wish list actually. But we went ahead and provided bankable projects and investment priorities. That is an opportunity to provide now additional finance, especially from the private investors. Finally, on the threats, we also cited stability in governance, election cycles, because we build in capacity in the public sector especially. And every election cycle, we tend to lose good number of people or staff who are undergone capacity, and they may be sidelined because of political reasons. So stability in general, political stability, good governance, limitations in governance actually. And finally, there are the most vulnerable countries. I can give you the example of the most 20 vulnerable countries are also heavily indebted poor countries. That means they have access to grant window when it comes to NAP financing, and that's not enough. And remember, the private sector are not willing to invest in NAPs or adaptation because usually it is life-saving, humanitarian emergency responses. So this is where you need other innovative financing windows. And unless there are, debt relief processes where in the process they can also improve in their public financial management system, which will enhance their reporting, tracking, and transparency. So that's where we are, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much for summarizing this rich discussion, and I really like the fact that you put so much emphasis on the opportunities as well. That's the way to look at it.
I'll be
so,
extremely quick.
Please,
Extremely quick.
over to you.
We are from Africa, NGO, and private sector. So I think that we agree on what has been said by the other people who have other groups. I think the most important aspect that we have discussed is the linkage on policy from the government, framework which needs KPIs, and relation with the private sector, so that there is a flow between all the stakeholders. And we also mentioned the difficulty of having access to the correct finance, as you mentioned in your introduction. It doesn't trickle down to the stakeholder itself because there is not this correct value chain production, creativity from up to down and down to and there. And one aspect also that we mentioned is the complexifications of the projects themselves, and to find the funding. The complexification makes it very difficult, and the size of the request that needs to be made sometimes doesn't avail to smaller countries, talking about Mauritius. Thank you. Have I been short enough?
Yeah, so I mean, summarizing such a rich discussion across the different groups, I think is going to be difficult, but I hope that everybody exchange phone numbers, show each other photos of your cats, get to know each other, continue the conversation afterwards. And what strikes me is we are thinking about this, we are discussing it. I don't know how many times we have actually discussed this. And then I'm thinking, if our society, our community, our country decides that we are going to war on something, shifting the economy towards a war economy can suddenly all of a sudden, I don't think they do workshops and group discussions and how are we going to be matching our war plan with the financing to actually be able to implement the violence that, but it's possible to turn an economy around if you are able to mobilize around, and it can be around the war, it can be the response to COVID. I think that's another example where there is political will. We don't have to accept that the structure is the way it is and the architecture is the way it is, but there is something fundamentally wrong with how we perceive the risk and the threat, and the response to that is not matching the reality that it is a crisis. And our mechanism and our structures are just not geared to that reality and that fact. So I think that is a little bit my reflection, and sorry for being maybe a little bit dystopian in my thinking. And how do we change it? Yeah, exactly. How do we And Greta Thunberg was trying to say our house is on fire. And how do we get to that reality?
I think we certainly would need more time to discuss that. Unfortunately, this 1 hour is already past. Time flew by. I think we had really rich discussions. I find it always impressive how much you can work out in just half an hour. For me, in terms of key messages, I think there were so many relevant. I would like to again stress the point of the private sector involvement in adaptation. I think it's such an important one. I think there are so many opportunities if we approach the private sector, if we get in the dialogue with them, because there is also business in adaptation, and there's nothing wrong with it. We need them. So that is one key message that I would like to leave here and that I also took away from the discussions. And then the second point is it's all about capacities, right? All the different points we mentioned, we discussed, it's about capacities. That's why we have been here today in the PCCB Hub. Once again, thanks to the organizers for having hosted us here in this session today. It's so important to have these kinds of exchange. And as you said, Ingvild, it's hopefully you exchanged contacts and will continue these discussions afterwards over a coffee, over a beer, in this COP or in the next COP. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to have this workshop. Thank you to GGGI for co-hosting this together with GIZ. Wish you all a nice afternoon and a successful COP.